Welcome to Comic Book Corner. Thanks for joining us this evening. I'm Dan Delatorre. Some sad news before we begin. Two sad stories. For those who don't know, we lost one of our own, a member of the family, Empire Comics. We lost him a few weeks ago. He died suddenly. Empire had a true love for the comic community. He was a wealth of knowledge, just a pleasant man. And the sad news is he lost his wife a few years ago. And so they leave behind two young children. So if you don't mind, if you can, help them out. There's a GoFundMe page. So they're going to need some, not just short-term help, but some long-term help. So if you can, it would be very much appreciated. Empire, you're going to be missed, my brother. So all the best to you. We will pray for you and never forget this man. And the other sad news we have to report is we've lost a giant in the artist industry, and that was John Romita Sr. John Romita was an institution. He literally was a lifelong artist, even since he was a child. He had such an incredible depth perception and work ethic. He was one of the greats for a reason. Probably his greatest work was during the Spider-Man run after it took over from Steve Ditko. Ditko had his own way of expressing himself artistically, but Romita brought more depth and presence, and he really energized that series like no other. I mean, the artwork stands alone. The best way that we can do is purchase those, remember the artwork that he gave, and again, he had such a way about him. Look at the dynamic of the Rhino, forcing his way, on the streets of New York, fighting Spider-Man. Only Romita had the ability to do what he did. John Romita was, again, beyond an institution. He will be one of the greats. And it's difficult because we who grew up in the 60s and 70s, we're losing our heroes, and we lost one just recently. John Romita Sr. was 91 years old. We respectfully move on to our next segment, and let's do a follow-up story on what we did, a story that we profiled about a year ago. And that was the breaking news of CGC changing the way that it slabbed its comics, the way that it proceeded on its grading, and especially what was on the cover. This was breaking news from this channel and others because we were shocked by what CGC was doing. They basically were cutting corners, in essence, and not reporting or not grading the way they were supposed to. You had to go to their website to find the grader's notes and so forth. It wasn't up front on the cover. And we thought this would harm. I certainly thought this would harm that company. And the puzzle seems to be, I thought that the secondary company, CBCS, which was a very distant second, what was it, PGX and EGS, which is in a distant fourth, would be this would be an opportunity for them to gain some ground. I don't think they really have. And what bothers me the most is that I don't like being, I hate to say dishonest, but there's a dishonest way that CGC was going about their new format. And I think it was obvious because of the money they had taken from the company called Blackstone. They took $500 million. And I can only imagine how much money they are obligated to pay back, because that company, which is sort of a vulture capitalist hedge fund, they probably want a healthy return. So I'm just throwing out a number here. Let's say CGC has to produce at least $100 million a year to maintain to pay back the loan that they had made. I was referring to the story we were talking about we reported last year. It bothered me how CGC just seems like they were cutting corners because they're obligated to pay back quite a bit of money from the company Blackstone. And I was just throwing out a number, maybe $150 million a year. That's an awful lot can you imagine how many comics they have to produce every single year just to pay back that company and make a profit? But here's the puzzle here. I had thought that this company would start to lose a lot of ground in the market. It doesn't seem to be the case. Quite the opposite. They are at least maintaining their number one status, maybe even accelerating a little bit more. And what the example I have here, and there are a number that I could have used, was Mickey from Swagglehouse. He's a great member of our community. He reported on a book that he purchased, a Grail, one I'd love to have. That's Hulk #2 from 1962. It's a 0.5, presents very, very well. But the problem, he had bought it at a heritage auction, and he reported that it's missing a couple of pages. But look at it's not, the label is a blue label, not a green label. Now that should be a green label, But again, CGC has reclassified and restructured the way that they're grading things. And he had said, even on this channel, he probably wouldn't have bought that book, even though the price was great. But because it has that blue label, it's almost psychologically we're driven to having the blue label and blue label only. We are shied away from the green or purple label, although the purple label we should probably take a second look at regarding, because these books are getting so old, we should take a second look at restoration. But the green label was there for a reason. It was an honest, transparent view. If you bought that book, it was not complete. And I think they've gotten rid of the green label completely. But Mickey, again, he's a very smart man. I can't damn him for, and I'm not about to knock him for buying the book. Again, I'd love to have it. What bothers me is that CGC had built their reputation on being transparent, and they named their company Certified Guaranteed Company for a reason, because you used to be able to trust this company. But for whatever reason, the market hasn't changed whatsoever. CGC is still it. I'm still personally bothered by it. And I made a statement last year that I've lived up to. I was about this. I've never sent my comics to be graded. I was going to do so years ago, but then the pandemic happened. But after this, I said, there's no way I'm going to send my books, and I'm not going to buy any books that was slabbed or created after 2022. There was one company that I did choose, and that was EGS Comics. We had Tony Trombetta on last year. We profiled him, and he gave a synopsis of his company, the direction. I like what he's doing, and I did take the leap of faith, and I'll show him in the next episode. I did send some very prominent books, Avengers 1, 2, and 3 from 1963. Just to, again, I'm sold on this company. I like what he's doing here. Now, the problem, if you're going to use someone like Tony, even PGX, which PGX is still in business, that's another thing that stuns me. With the reputation that they had years ago, the owner of that company never wanted to bother to clean up that reputation. So if he's too lazy to clean up his own reputation, why would I send my books there? But Tony's out in the open, and again, I like what he's doing. He's very old school. He uses overstreet methods, which that's how I grew up with, because those are reliable. And I'll show what I got. They should be in very, very shortly on the next episode. But if you use EGS, currently the resale is almost non-existent. Everyone is still using CGC and to a lesser degree CBCS. If you would use EGS like I'm doing it, the reason I do it is because I don't buy and sell anything. I'm simply a collector. They stay in my collection. It's not going anywhere. Hopefully I'll pass it on to my children after I'm gone. But the one thing I do like about this, the grading that I'm getting from EGS is something that is reliable. Something I can count on, something I used to rely on with CGC. So this is also a question for the chat. If you're still using CGC, and do you really trust what you're getting? I mean, I know it's a market thing, it's a money thing, but again, it just bothers me that they're passing something along that isn't reliable. Anyway, this will be an ongoing story. Let's move on to our next segment. And that is the other big news recently, and that is Universal Studios now no longer has the rights to the Hulk. That is coming back to the MCU. Now, there has not been any major announcements from Marvel regarding upcoming movies, most likely because of the ongoing strike, which doesn't seem to have any ending right now. It's going to be long lasting. But right now, I would take a good look at some of the Hulk stories, because since the Hulk has been in ensemble movies, that's a major character. And as one of the biggest Hulk fans out there, there's so much storyline out there that no one is really looking at. And that leads us to our picks of the week, because our picks of the week are very heavily Hulk oriented, because if you're not up on the Hulk storyline, now is a good time to get them. The old adage is, when you're collecting, always look to see where people are not looking and then buy from there. So let's start here with some of our the first two. And oh, by the way, so these are also stories that I had loved as a child. The Hulk being the powerhouse that he is, I'd always loved the Hulk versus Thing battles and the Hulk versus Thor battles. But I have a lot of Hulk versus Thing battles. They may seem expensive now, but if the Hulk and the Fantastic Four get going, these will be unreachable in the next maybe 5 to 10 years, depending on how well they proceed with the movies. The first two here are ones I've mentioned before, but they're worth a second look. Hercules is also in the MCU, and he's going to be on his way. I hope they do a good job with that particular character because the Thor run has been a little lackluster. But the Hercules character, which was a long-standing Silver Age character, may appear, and that'll be a fun battle if he battles the Hulk, and I think he will. And this is still an underrated, underpriced Tales to Astonish number 78. 78, that's right. I don't know my own writing here. But it's a great story and a great battle if you can get your hands on one. They're not that expensive. To the right is Hulk number 131. Very reasonable. Look at Iron Man in his original armor. This is the first appearance of Jim Wilson. He was a side character. He lasted a while. Meant quite something to the Hulk. And you never know if they bring up a side character. This is his first appearance, and for the most part, fairly affordable. Next, we have what do we have next here? Oh, Fantastic Four numbers 167. This also goes with 166, which we'll see in a while. These are extremely reasonably priced, very plentiful. But these are the ones that you can always get if you go to the into the bins. They're usually $10 to $20. You can get a nice high grade for maybe a couple $100, which I do have a 9.8 of this. But these are underrated, and these are great books from the Bronze Age. I'd get them while you can. I'd stockpile these if I could, because again, they're not that hard to find if you look, but people have been overlooking these for the longest time. Next we have, again, there's the 166. You can't have one without the other. The two dovetail with each other. Now I know Fantastic Four number 25 is very, very pricey, without question. But again, think long term. If you think they're expensive now, they're going to be very, very expensive in the next 5 to 10 years. And if you have the means, I would get your hands on one or maybe a few of them. I actually have 3 at the moment, and I would get a 4th if I can find one, because again, people are not looking at these right now. But these are classic Jack Kirby stories, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby stories. The odd thing is, look at the comparisons. This is a great comparison. Look how small the thing looks compared to the Hulk. That's Jack Kirby's idea. The thing was, I guess, 6 foot or so. Look how big the thing is compared to the Hulk. It's almost bigger than the Hulk in the Fantastic Four 166 page. So it's kind of fun how the thing has changed over the years. But you can't go wrong having any one of these in your collection. Let's continue on with the same theme here. Now this is still an underrated book, Hulk number 122. And it was a Thing versus Hulk battle. You mostly buy that for the cover. The story was interesting. Bruce Banner was trying to cure himself and seeks out Reed Richards, for his help. And of course, the Hulk shows up, and Thing has to do what he does best, battles the Hulk. But that's a gorgeous, gorgeous cover. That is literally one of the last Silver Age Hulk stories done in 1969. And to the right is a very expensive book. But again, as I say before, if you think they're expensive now, you wait until the Thing and Hulk stories start generating. They're all going to start moving all simultaneously. I was extremely lucky to find a low grade of this. It is slabbed, but I only paid $300 for it. So you have to use your due diligence. They're still out there, but I would start my search right now because once you get it, you've got it, and it's a grail that you never want to let go in your collection. Next we have God, this is a gorgeous, gorgeous cover. The thing that bothered me about the Tales to Astonish number 93, that's the Maurice Severin art. Gorgeous cover. People had made fun of Fantastic Four 50 because that was a brown cover, and there was a lot of ridicule. I don't see why. I love the brown cover because it works well with Hulk and the Silver Surfer. You should get your hands on an FF50. That should go without saying. But I think these Tales to Astonish runs are really going to accelerate as well, because that Silver Surfer will be here with the Fantastic Four. Just a dynamite story. And again, you can't go wrong with Silver Age. To the right is a Bronze Age, heading towards the Copper Age. Silver Surfer versus Hulk. Hulk number 250. Great, great story. You know what? I shouldn't say anything about it, because if I talk about it, it'll ruin it. Just for the story alone, I'd get some of these, but the artwork, again, they're just stellar on both levels. Next we have, okay, if the Hulk is showing up here, and he is, his love interest is Jarella. And I was hoping Jarella would show up in the Ant-Man movie, because you had who was it? One of the characters from that run show up. They never referred to it though. But this is a classic story from Harlan Ellison and Roy Thomas. This is Hulk number 140, first appearance of Jarella, where he goes. The Hulk shrinks down to a world called Kai, and it's a dynamite story. I found a 9.6 white pages of this. You also have to get Avengers 88. The story begins there and then continues in Hulk 140. But if the Hulk is going to appear in the MCU, it's mandatory to get the Jarella story because that was his love interest. Well, you also, pardon me, I should also throw Betty Ross, but Hulk 1 is a bit pricey because that was her first appearance. But I believe they're going to have to bring Jarella in at some point. That was a dynamite story. Also get Hulks 148 and 156 to go along with the storyline if you're going to get Hulk 140. To the right is Hulk 104. Again, Marie Severin. Look how gorgeous her art was. Look at the perception, the depth. And with Rhino, and Rhino is a hot character right now, the Hulk's going to be all over the place regarding battles because of his strength, who he is, and the way he handles himself. All the big hitters were after the Hulk, including the Rhino. This is, by the way, an issue that I gained great respect for the Rhino as a character, as a villain. He later became a hero later on, but he shows true heart. I mean, the Rhino is totally outmatched here, even though as strong as he is. But you can't help but feel for this particular character because you always appreciate someone who never gives up, and the Rhino doesn't in this particular issue, and it's a gorgeous issue to have in anyone's collection. Next, okay, the other character is the leader. Now, I don't think I put his first appearance. I think that's Tales to Astonish number 63 is his first full appearance. But these leader stories, this is the early Hulk runs from the late 60s. These are going to start moving because just as Jarella was his love interest, the leader was the Hulk's arch rival. And he was all over the place. He is an interesting character. The two, I don't think it's a stretch to say this. Because again, being the biggest Hulk fan, I knew all the villains were that he had to deal with. The dynamic with the Hulk and the leader is not that far off from Batman and the Joker. I know that may be a stretch to some people, but not to me, because I knew they had deep, rich history together. There was this rivalry like you can't believe. You just have to read the story to understand that. But there were quite a number of these stories, and they were really, really well done. Very underappreciated. I think very affordable. And I would start collecting them as soon as you see them. Again, people are not looking at this. To the right is a very pricey book. Hulk 102. I have a very high grade of this, which I will be sending in phase 2 of my submissions to EGS. I might have this clean. This is very high grade, maybe 992. Extremely expensive book, but worth the storyline because, again, this is when he begins the story run. People are talking too much, or they have been mentioning, maybe not too much, about the Iron Man run, Iron Man and Submariner 1. Well, at the same time, Hulk 102 shows up and he begins his series. Again, Marie Severin at her best, a dynamite story worthy in anyone's collection. Next will be our next episode, because in the final episode, or the next episode rather, I want to have a detailed discussion on DC. I have been very vocal in every chat that I can be on regarding the direction of James Zaslav and James Gunn regarding where they're going. I wanted to have seen the Flash movie. I haven't. I may have to wait for it to come out for the the DVD, Blu-ray, whatever. I'm still very much in doubt that they're going in the right direction. I think this is going to be a disaster. I think it's just simply a matter of time. I'm not rooting against them. I never have. The DC characters are as powerful, if not more powerful, than Marvel. They just have the wrong people at helm, and I'd like to explain why I see that and get your input and feedback, because maybe there's something I don't see. Maybe because everyone seems to be rooting for DC and thinking they are in the right direction. I'm sort of the lone person saying that they're not, and I'd like to explain why in the next episode. Everyone, thanks for joining for the Ian Hoodrat Network. I'm Dan De La Torre, and this is Comic Book Corner.